I absolutely love when Brian Tyler Cohen goes on NewsNation, especially Katie Pavlich's show, and just completely dismantles her each and every single time. One thing that I notice about her is that she always allows Brian to rattle her. In this clip, we're going to see Brian Tyler Cohen on Katie Pavlich's show on NewsNation. She literally threatens to cut his mic simply because of the fact that she cannot answer one simple question. As usual, let's watch the clip in full. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts towards the end. Let's get into it.
All right, now let's bring in progressive YouTuber Brian Tyler Cohen, along with Ashley Davis, national security expert and author of The Power Pivot. Thank you both for being here to react tonight. So, Ashley, just your reaction to Thomas Massie's loss, fresh off the press.
Well, I'm super happy, to be honest with you, because I think that, number one, the speaker is probably the happiest man in the world right now. I mean, nothing to do with the president. Let's just take that out of it. But Massie has done nothing to move forward the agenda even before President Trump was in. He was always the vote that was going to vote no. It wasn't like even his Senator Rand Paul, who just would not vote. You know, he doesn't vote against things that ended the deficit. Everyone knows that. No one depends on his votes on those type of things. But Massie just voted no on everything. So I think it's a really positive move for Republicans. If we do end up holding the House, at least we have a vote that we can count on.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. Speaker Johnson is always relying on the math, and to have one less person who is constantly saying no will be helpful to him over the course of the next couple of months, certainly. Brian, of course, President Trump had a big hand in this. He actively helped campaign against Thomas Massie. We saw the Secretary of War down in that district ahead of this election tonight. It's clear that President Trump is still the leader of the Republican Party and still putting wins on the board. But what about Democrats? I mean, you have former President Barack Obama, who went into Georgia to campaign for this Supreme Court case in that state, losing tonight. Sarah Warren will keep that seat. So who's the leader of the Democratic Party at this point if the former president can't win a seat like that in Georgia?
We'll figure out who the leader of the Democratic Party is soon enough. I mean, we have an election coming up for midterms, and that's what our focus is on right now. Obviously, after that, we're going to have God knows how many Democrats throw their hat into the ring, and we'll figure out who the leader of the Democratic Party is shortly thereafter. But I think it's interesting that in none of the lead up to what you're discussing now with Thomas Massie, did anybody name the number one thing that caused Donald Trump to push out Massie in the first place, and that was his support, Massie's support for the Epstein files. That's why this is all happening. That's why Donald Trump turned on him, which is especially ironic given the fact that Trump and all of his administration officials were falling over themselves to demand the release of the Epstein files when they were just on the campaign. But as soon as it became clear that Trump was implicated in those files, that his name was listed in those files, God knows how many times, then all of a sudden they wanted Massie out.
Brian, we all know that President Trump signed legislation to release millions of Epstein documents, and he is not implicated criminally in any of this.
3.5 million files they refused to release.
In any of this. So for you to imply that there are crimes committed is completely dishonest. Ashley, your response to that.
So then why don't they release the other 3.5 million files?
That's not why President Trump went after Thomas Massie, as Ashley eloquently pointed out. But Ashley, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that. I mean, Massie's been a problem for a long, long time. I mean, obviously, this is his 8th term. I mean, he doesn't vote with us ever. So I understand your talking point in regards to the Epstein files on the Democrat side, but that has nothing to do with how bad of a Republican member he was.
Neither one of you think that the Epstein files had anything to do with Trump turning on Thomas Massie?
No,
Brian,
Massie hasn't voted for any of the Republican priorities. Not the big, big beautiful bill. Nothing.
It's funny to me. I understand. Like everybody has to pretend that the Epstein files on the right has to pretend that the Epstein files are not a thing anymore. But everybody watching and everybody who's going to see this on the internet is going to know how clownish all of this is. That you are both pretending like the Epstein files had nothing to do with this, when the people that Trump has turned on, he's done as a direct result of their support
Brian,
for the Epstein
files. The president
files.
has been very clear over and over again for months why he believed that Thomas Massie was not the man for the job. The person who replaced him is a former Navy SEAL who is going to go in and vote for the party, for the country, for the president's agenda, when this is a district that President Trump won by 85%. So I know that Democrats only started to care about the Epstein files when it was politically convenient for them. They had nothing to say about it for 4 years under Joe Biden when he was in charge of the DOJ. They were releasing nothing. President Trump is the one who decided to sign the legislation to release these documents, and I find it quite
And
interesting that when I ask you who is the leader of the Democratic Party, when Barack Obama and Kamala Harris got their butts kicked tonight in Georgia and in other places around the country, losing that Supreme Court case in Georgia, losing the redistricting fight in Virginia, losing the fight in Louisiana, losing the fight all over the map, you want to change the subject and talk about the Epstein files once again.
Answer me just one question. Did they release all of the files?
They are in the process of redacting to release all the files because we want to make sure, and I would hope you would agree with this. Look, I'm not going to allow a conversation that's supposed to be about elections to be derailed by you to talk about the Epstein files when you don't want to talk about how the Democrats lost tonight. They continue to lose.
Thomas Massie. Thomas Massie is not in Congress for one reason.
Democrats are losing to President Trump. He is the leader of the party.
He co-sponsored the Epstein files.
Brian can't even tell me who is in charge of the Democratic Party because Barack Obama clearly isn't. He's losing.
Of course
so
he's
Ashley,
not.
what shape are Democrats in when it comes to November? Brian, stop talking over me. I'm going to cut your mic. Stop talking over everybody. Nobody can hear you. No one can understand what you're saying. We'd like to have a conversation, not a talking over each other. Ashley, please assess the situation for Democrats going into November, considering they lost tonight, they continue to lose these redistricting fights, and they have no money going into the elections in November.
Well, listen, I think obviously if you look at any historical race in regards to a midterm, it's going to be very tough for us. And I think it's going to continue to be. However, we have had a lot of things that have actually gone our way in regards to some of the Supreme Court cases, in regards to redistricting, in regards to some of these good candidates. I mean, listen, I've known John Cornyn for a long, long time. I thought it was very interesting today. The president came out and he endorsed, obviously, the Attorney General, Paxton. Everyone knows that he has a lot of personal issues coming into this, but he was still the most popular candidate. And I think Tellerico is actually a strong candidate. I'm going to give Democrats the benefit of the doubt there. He is a good candidate. However, I think Paxton's what the president's doing right now, which is what he's been saying he's going to do. And by the way, Katie, he hasn't even unleashed all of his money. Yeah. And that's supposed to start, James Blair's leaving the White House here in the next couple of weeks, and they're going to unleash this, huge machine that the president has and has built, not just with money, but with people. And I think that's how we can actually win.
Run. I appreciate both your time. Ashley Davis, Brian Tyler Cohen, thank you for joining us. Have a good night.
So, did you guys see the way that Katie Pavlich handled herself when Brian brought up the actual reason why Thomas Massie is no longer in Congress? She was rattled. She panicked. And you could literally see it. That's the reason why she threatened to cut his mic. Because she was panicked. She was rattled because of the fact that Brian Tyler Cohen was telling the truth. And the reality is this. Katie Pavlich, NewsNation, a lot of the mainstream media are trying to gaslight the American public as well as the rest of the world that Donald Trump is doing what it is that he's doing for the good of the country. Now, I want to highlight something to you guys. Every single Republican who's pushed back on the Epstein transparency has been targeted. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she got attacked. Massie got primaried and got ousted. And we've seen Donald Trump attacking Lauren Boebert. We've seen it. Now, I'm not a fan of any of those individuals that it is that we just spoke about. But I'm just trying to highlight to you guys, as well as the rest of the American public, that Donald Trump thinks you are stupid. He does. Now, when you actually take a look at the actual facts, I believe the percentage that Thomas Massie votes with the Republicans, it's in the high 90s. It's in the high 90s. So if what you are telling me is that a Republican doesn't even have the right to vote against his party, even a couple percent of the time, guys, that's not a party. That's a dictatorship. And Donald Trump is the dictator. But there's no surprise here because we see that the Republican Party isn't a party. It is Donald Trump's party. And what he says goes, even to the point that Republicans are willing to go as far as defending literal pedophiles because of the fact that Donald Trump wants them to do so. I'm glad that Brian Tyler Cohen came on and he spoke the truth. He said what a majority of other people probably just wouldn't say. And that's needed. That's necessary because these guys are, excuse my French, these guys are batshit crazy. And they should be ashamed of themselves because of the fact they don't even have enough balls to stand up for something that's right. And that is most definitely the Epstein files. We saw this administration and a lot of people in the right-wing media spend 4 solid years demanding transparency when it comes to the Epstein list. The second that Donald Trump's name showed up on it, guess what? They all developed selective amnesia exactly at the same time. And Katie Pavlich tonight wasn't an outlier. She is the template. This is what happens. And then guess what? When they can't silence you, what do? They threaten you. The same way she threatened to cut Brian's mic tonight. And then after that, she let the other speaker talk, Ashley Davis. And then what did she do after that? She quickly wrapped up the show. This right here is proof that these guys know exactly what they're doing and they know the truth. Thomas Massie was not ousted because of the fact that he was voting against Republicans. Thomas Massie was ousted because of the fact that he believed that the people that are guilty of crimes when it comes to the Epstein files needed to be held accountable. And Donald Trump, for some reason, Donald Trump does not want that to get out. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this clip in the comment section and below. And let's do the usual stuff. Give the video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, hype up the video, and turn on the bell notification. I appreciate you guys. And as usual, I'll see you guys in the next one.